networking is that it's an active, dynamic process that links people into mutually beneficial relationships to build social capital. It's an active process and that you have to take part. You're here today, or perhaps you're watching. That's an active movement on your part. I hear very few people who tell me that someone rides up on that white horse and says, I got the job for you, no one else is being interviewed, you got it. It just doesn't happen. It's a dynamic process and that it's always changing. No two networking situations are ever the same. No two communication situations, no two phone calls. So what you need to do is learn tips and techniques that you can take from event to event to event with you or use online. It links people. I love to give people in my workshops a chain, and it's made up of big fat links, smaller links, and broken links. I'd like you to think for a minute. Who is a fat link in your network? And by a fat link, I mean who's one of your oak trees? You know, an oak tree's roots are as wide as the tree is high. Lots of roots there. Who's one of those in your network? And now think, who is a thinner link? Somebody you can count on, usually, but you don't stay in touch with them as regularly. And then I want you to think about who are those broken links. And when you leave here today, I'd like to ask you to promise me that you're going to do something to reconnect with one of those broken links. Because a chain is only as good as its what? Its weakest link. And if you've got some broken links in there, your networking chain may not be functioning effectively. Sometimes we have broken links that we really shouldn't have let break. Some are not as crucial. You go back and say, wow, I should have stayed in touch with her. She's pretty successful now. So can you reconnect? It also links people into mutually beneficial relationships. Ladies and gentlemen, whoever gets that point is a good networker. Networking is as much about giving as it is about getting. Ever notice that a bank does not let you withdraw money until you put some in, unless you pay interest? You know what? The universe is the same way. It doesn't want us to take and take and take and take until we give. And the beautiful thing is, it's called the law of reciprocity. You don't have to keep track, because once you start giving, you're going to get. That's how I was able to build 2 businesses on networking and word of mouth. Because when you give, you get. It's just that simple. And master networkers know that. And then it helps you build social capital. Now, there are a lot of esoteric, far-flung, intellectual definitions of social capital. Wayne Baker even wrote a book on social capital. My definition is very simple. It's your network of knob-turners. People who can open doors for you and for whom you can open doors. And as one of you already said, it's not what you know, it's who you know when you go to get a job. I got a job at Nicor Gas and AT&T with 1 phone call, because I had built relationships through something way back then called the Suburban Press Club, and I knew the directors of PR. I called the one at Nicor Gas and I said, would you hand out my resume? You know, he was a director. I said, you know, a lot of people, I wanted to stay in the western suburbs at that time. My boys were smaller. And he said, sure. The day he gets it, he called me and he said, I'm not going to send out your resume. And I said, thanks a lot, Bob. He said, no, I have 7 people working for me. One of them quit. How soon can you get in for an interview? I got the job. When I decided to leave Nicor Gas because it was very conservative for my blood, I called somebody at the time, Illinois Bell. And he said, well, if you want to stay in the western suburbs, you better talk to Pete at Bell Labs, you know, the predecessor to Lucent, because he said he knows the western suburbs. I called him. He said, you're not going to believe this. There's 2,700 people in this building. I have 2, and one of them just quit. I don't want you to mail your resume. I want you to drop it at the front desk on your way to Nicor Gas. So you can see why I'm a big believer in the benefits of in-person networking. 2 major companies, 2 phone calls, and I had jobs. I stayed at AT&T 11 years and might be there today still if they hadn't wanted me to go east. I'm not a New Yorker. I'm not a New Jerseyite. I spent enough time there to know that. So that's when I left to build my own business. But it was great experience for me.